Investigative 423 views, no ratings yet, loading. Print this post. Ordinary people, seemingly unconnected with the National Anti-Corruption (NAC) and other law enforcement agencies, appear as initiators of several criminal investigations. They, after notifying the state institutions that were asked for bribes, participate, along with law enforcement, to detention operations in flagrant of officials. Who are these people? Citizens with a strong civic spirit, fed up to live in a corrupt society, or undercover agents, paid, with well-defined roles and purposes, to incite the commission of crimes, for government institutions, to combat corruption, to prove to everyone that Moldova is fighting this scourge? Officially, NAC announced that, since August 2014, the integrity of officials from Moldova will be tested by undercover agents. Unofficially, dubious persons, kind of agents, are working for years with the competent authorities. Officials and ordinary employees are caught red-handed after being challenged by them to take bribes. Retained, for selling information at the end of March 2014, was arrested in the act. A man from Straszeni, who extorted €300 from a trader, presenting himself as an employee of NAC. NAC denied that the individual has ever been an employee of the institution. After he was arrested, on his name has been lodged another complaint. A lawyer from Straszeni, Irina Croata, filed a complaint to prosecution, saying that, in January 2014, he sought and even received from her 4,000 lei, saying he is an employee of NAC. In exchange for money, the man promised information regarding her, from a file at NAC. He offered to meet near University of Medicine, NAC around, no, that it's my problem and it's in my interests. I came. He told me that I had to be retained on that day, told us, previously, the lawyer. About this case, ZDG wrote in the edition from 8 May 2014. Person detained and accused of these crimes is Vyacheslav Goloi, who came to the attention of ZDG since 2008. Though NAC asserts that man has never been an employee of the institution, his relationship to the deceased Center for Combating Economic Crimes and Corruption (CSEC) is more than obvious. In that period, especially, he has initiated several flagrant, in which diverse persons were detained with bribes, including mayors inconvenient to PCs, back then at ruling. Target of flagrant, non-communist mayors Nicholas Panzaru, former mayor in V. Bumbata, Oungeni, came to regret a meeting he had in February 2007, with Vyacheslav Goloi. Finally, he was sentenced to a fine of 10,000 lei, deprived of the right to hold public office for a year, after being detained in flagrant by CSEC, with 1,200 lei money received from Vyacheslav Goloi. Former mayor, although convicted, is even now certain that was the target of a challenge staged by Goloi together with law enforcement. He came to me with a request to open a race, Bumbata, Oungeni. That was just a pretext. After I signed the act, he took it, stretched 1,200 lei and said loudly, "Mr. Mayor, look, here, 1,200 lei." Then he said goodbye and left in less than no time. Immediately, came in the officers. I know they followed me a lot. I was one of the few non-communist mayors from the district, recalls Panzaru. I knew it was a trap and I wanted to talk to this Goloi before the trial. I went to his home. There, he admitted everything. He asked me some money and told me that the file will be closed immediately, if I pay. At the hearings, Goloi was refusing to appear, being brought at a time by force. In that period, Vadim Dadu, former mayor of Petrosti, also non-communist, says that he was allegedly the target of a challenge, also with Vyacheslav Galoy in the foreground. Galoy came to him, immediately after the elections from 2007, with a request to take in Lisa land, to dig a pond there. He tried to provoke me, telling me that I will also gain from it. I said that everything should be done by auction. He was to return in few days. Meanwhile, someone warned me and told me that I would be the target of a bribery challenge. After that, Galoy never approached me, says Dadu. Also during that period, the name of Vyacheslav Galoy appears in a case involving officials from the Ungern Registry Office. ZDG reported, in 2008, about that file, which, eventually, proved to be plain with the participation and involvement of Galoy. Then, a young woman, Dorina Karasevsky, engaged at OSCE Ungern, retained in the act and subsequently declared innocent, had a miscarriage from the shock that she had. He was preparing something for me as well, a flagrant are, apparently, the house specialty for Vyacheslav Galoy. Originally from Sipotany, Kolorashi, officially, he is unemployed, and the villagers do not have good words for him. He is a danger to society, says a local. Mayor of the village Vasil Arata, supports the suspicions that are hanging over him, noting that Galoy wanted to frame him also a flagrant. I cannot find words to describe him. He is perceived in society as a negative person, not working anywhere, always has been involved in nonsenses. He is provoking people. I think he had relationships with law enforcement. On New Year's Eve, someone told me to be careful, that he was preparing me something, a flagrant. I said that I can't wait for it. But it happened as in that saying, do not dig a pit to others, as you might fall into it. I know many people in positions of responsibility whom he tried to give bribes, says the official. Talking with ZDG, many of them have confirmed the information. Now, Vyacheslav Galoy is in custody. Ian Tescu, prosecutor at the prosecutor Strasheny, dealing with his case, could not give us many details about Galoy's past. I cannot deny or confirm certain circumstances. I can only confirm that he is not employed at NAC. The prosecutor even stated that NAC would have notified prosecutor Strasheny that Galoy acts as if on behalf of the institution. ZDG tried several times to contact Liliana Penas, Galoy's lawyer, who neither answered the cell phone nor the landline for several days in a row. Bushovci, the initiator of sentencing of the first judge named Roman Bushovci, came to public attention at the end of 2013. He was the one who filed the complaint to the NAC, claiming that Georg Popper, judge from Teleneshti, sentenced in April to 7 years imprisonment, asked him $200. In court, Popper and his lawyer, Vasil Nikura, argued that in the middle has been a challenge set up by law enforcement. In support to their claims, they presented papers from several cases in which Bushovci is the person making claims, including at NAC, so that customs officers, border guards or employees of the cadastre to be caught in the act. ZDG talked to several people involved in those cases, and their testimonies, including some people who knew Bushovci very well, reveal things which are more than suspicious. In January 2011, Roman Bushevsky filed a complaint at Forlesti prosecution requesting criminal liability of collaborator from Forlesti cadastral office, Vitaly Spaniu, because he would have extorted from him $100 for the registration of ownership on the house of his grandparents, from Saratonoir, Forlesti. Immediately, was opened a criminal case. On the same day, the official was caught red-handed. He pleaded guilty, and in May 2011, the court, based on a plea bargain agreement, has set as punishment a fine of 1,000 lei. He let down the boy Eugenia Sandu. The woman in whose name Bushevsky filed a complaint, died in 2012. But we managed to find her relatives, who know the details of that story. The woman we spoke to asked us, after we discussed already, not to disclose her name, the concern not to lest revenge. She told us that Roman Bushevsky was married, until that year, to a niece of Eugenia Sandu, with whom he has a child, whom he denied after divorce. People who ate at the same table and shared a house with Bushevsky told us they did not know where he worked while he was part of their family. He did not tell his wife where he works. I know that a whole year he went to Chisinau in the morning and came back in the evening. When we tried to find out where he works, he got upset. Only he knows what he was doing. He was very secret, says the woman. With reference to the act, representatives of Sandu family state that the official from the cadastre was a victim of Bushevsky. There were lies on the part of Roman. That man did not ask anything. He came to our house after we took him with the car from cadastre. We've asked when the papers will be ready. He told me how long it will take. I asked if he needed some finance. He said he did not need anything. Then, Bushevsky went with him to cadastre, and on the way, I think they talked about it. Roman asked if he could to make documents faster. So it all started, recalls our source. Roman came home and asked 2,000 lei, to give him, allegedly, to make documents faster. I said we do not give, we do not hurry anywhere. And he carried on by himself. I know he was caught, but that boy is innocent. Bushevsky made that man act this way. He let down the boy, is sure the woman, who said that she never wants to hear of Roman Bushevsky. Thanks God we got rid, she concludes. He challenged me completely and just 2 months from the flagrant with employee from cadastre. In March 2011, Roman Bushevsky filed a complaint on behalf of Alexei Sorbolo, inspector at Oknita Customs Bureau, later Brysony, accusing him that, activating at the crossing point Otasai, Mogilev, Podolsk, in late 2010 offered him, several times, sums of money, to facilitate the introduction of goods from Ukraine into Moldova. All actions were filmed by Bushevsky, even before he filed the complaint and, respectively, opened the criminal case. He challenged me completely. He came to me without knowing who I am. Already equipped, with the right to record and shoot another collaborator, says Alexei Sorbolo. They fight corruption, but they are nowhere near it, he thinks. Recently, he and a colleague were sentenced to 5 years in suspended prison, after the file was returned, by the Supreme Court, to the Court of Appeals, which earlier acquitted them. Now, the Supreme Court will rule again. If I lose at SCJ, I will go to Strasbourg. They mocked me, revolts Sorbolo. Since March 2013, Bushevsky worked to retain other customs officers. This time, with NAC. The survey results were announced with great fanfare by the institution through a press release, issued on September 28, 2013. 5 people, including a policeman, 2 customs employees and 2 former publicans, were held by NAC jointly with prosecutors and internal security of customs. Suspects appear in a case of passive corruption and are believed to be involved in extortion of money to facilitate passage of cars through customs post Lager, Bryssony, is said in the statement. ECHR condemns challenge. Victor Sandhu was, in 2006, director of the State Veterinary Clinic. He was detained in flagrant with 400 lei, after accepting money from a young man who asked his dog vaccination and issue of a travel document for the animal. Subsequently, Sandhu was convicted. But the man turned to the ECHR, noting that in the middle was a challenge and a setup. In February 2014, the court ruled in his favor, establishing that the person who filed the complaint previously collaborated with law enforcement in 2 other similar situations and that national courts have not examined whether C.'s action had the effect of causing offense, says ECHR. Although, apparently, the judgment should put in guard state institutions, lawyer Vitaly Negasevsky, chairman of Lawyers for Human Rights, thinks that, at the moment, there are no circumstances that might make them more careful, although courts' judgments should, normally, influence their behavior. I am almost sure that there is also now a team of professional provocateurs, dealing with challenges. This way, the authorities are trying to make life easier. But that's not right, because you should not provoke the man to do the crime, notes attorney. 6 months collaboration with NAC. This case was initiated following a complaint lodged by the citizen Bizovsky Roman, on the 27th of March 2013. He complained that public figures, including Samir Oleg Stefanch and his colleague with the last name Vasila, had created a scheme for systematic extortion of funds they are not entitled, for the transport units that are subject to the passage of goods from Ukraine not to necessarily be controlled. Bizovsky complained that they were extorting from him this way $1,200. Later, he worked with NAC officers to detain all persons involved. Bizovsky was endowed with special equipment, as well as his car, a Ford Transit. The measures were approved by Judge Mihail Diaconu, in July 2013. Means that, until September, when the operation was over, Bizovsky worked with officers from the center for not less than 6 consecutive months. We tried to talk with the people involved in this case, but most have refused to give any comments. Approached by press, when they were brought to the headquarters of NAC, they pleaded not guilty. Roman Statniai, anti-corruption prosecutor leading prosecution on this case, told us that in January, the case was sent to trial. The prosecutor claims that he does not know what would be the relationship between NAC and Roman Bizovsky. What does it mean? What kind of relationship? Do you understand what you are asking me? What would the answer sound like? I cannot tell you something like that. I know he is a witness in this case, told us Statniai. Note that, recently, Bizovsky was sentenced to 9 years in prison by Forlesti prosecutor, accused of scam. He also has another pending case, in which he is accused of torture. These people are more distinguished in character than others who are yet, the persons whose names appear in multiple folders of flagrant. Christina Tana, NAC deputy, argues that the persons concerned in the article are not employed at NAC. However, she stated that they are nothing more than some people with a strong civic spirit. They are not paid for taking part along with officers in detention operations in flagrant. Edward Harringen, head of the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, PA, says that these are people who do not want to tolerate corruption. We have discussed these issues even inside. These are people who do not want to tolerate corruption. They are not agents, as they cannot be now. Undercover agents may be just officers. Civilians cannot be agents, just informers. But the informant could be anyone. Here, when people terminate each other, it's abnormal. In other countries, something like that is normal. The fact is that these people are not paid. They simply declare they no longer want to tolerate. These people are more distinguished in character than others. It's weird, I understand, but, says the prosecutor, Bizovsky probably had a business related to systematic crossing of the border. Then, he collaborated and agreed, without the expense of his work, to film. People, lately, are different. Increasingly more addressed to us with complaints. Perhaps there were some results. We call them professional petitioners. We can only thank them, encourage them and draw as many, says PA chief. I call them briber on duty. A former head of the corruption argues that these people are not formally employed nor paid officially by the collaborating institutions. Most times, he says, they are in close contact with investigators or informants of those institutions. How do they make money? A former prosecutor claims that provocateurs could earn money by extorting them from victims they have held or will hold in the act. The money are divided between him, officer and prosecutor. So, it doesn't lead to the act, or the file do not reach the court, or, if it does, it is several gaps that lead to acquit that person. Provoker can also sell information obtained from the collaborating, and shares the money with someone in organs, says a former employee of KGEC. They are a kind of agents. I call them briber on duty, man on duty who gives a bribe. No. They were before. They also exist now. When he needed a certificate, until noon he went to a doctor in center, following a meal, to one from Botanica, and was challenging them. But, it is not right. If the agent would not come to you, then the crime would not be committed. So, it's clear challenge. If a neighbor complains that another neighbor threatened to behead him, then what? We give him the axe, to try this? Even granting money from special funds, for acts, is not legal. The law do not provide such thing, says an employee of the structures of law, whom the position does not allow to criticize openly the addressed issue. All this are done to create the desired image, but is it not clear that we lie to ourselves? He says. I talked to someone, who told me that there are, at least at MIA, some people who present themselves as secret agents. They are paid, they have cases at MIA, but their name is not indicated, just a code. Their identity is known to a very limited number of people. Not even the minister knows, says lawyer Vitaly Nagasovsky. P.S. In researching this article, I found many cases where the same person is listed as a victim in 2 or 3 criminal cases. As I did not have access to official documents, it is possible that, in reality, there are people who have worked with law enforcement in several cases, having one or more identities. Victor Mosnig,